All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Tony Thompson with NAMBA. It's currently 2 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Central time. Want to thank each of you for joining today's webinar. We're going to give it just a second here to allow people to come in, and then we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment. We'll be right back. As we are waiting here for just another minute, I'm just going to do a quick sound check. If you can see the screen and hear me, if you could just send a yes or raise your hand through the chat function, that would be great. Great. Thank you, Emily. Okay. Thanks, guys. Again, let's give it 1 second and about another 60 seconds rather, and then we will definitely get started to talk about social impact lending, the next frontier for lenders. Okay, we're going to jump in. First and foremost, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. For those who I have not had the opportunity and pleasure and honor to meet, my name is Tony Thompson. I'm the founder and CEO of NAMBA. I want to thank each of you for joining us today for our webinar entitled Social Impact Lending, the Next Frontier for Lenders. Bring you greetings from the beautiful city of Chicago, the Windy City. Although today is very mild, a little hot, given that I'm from Florida, it's actually beautiful, but I'm sure for the folks here in Chicago, maybe a little warm. Speaking of warm, I want to take this opportunity to personally invite each of you to join me and 1,200 other attendees at NAMBA Connect, September the 15th through the 17th in Orlando, Florida. We have a new home, the beautiful 5-star JW Marriott, as well as this is our first year in Orlando. And so we're really excited. We've got a huge lineup of nothing but great speakers, great content, great networking. And for the largest real estate and mortgage industry conference in the industry, NAMBA Connect is going to be the place to be. To learn more about the lineup, the speakers, go to namba.org. That's namba.org. I do want to let you know for this hotel here, which is our host hotel, we have less than 75 rooms remaining. We think we're going to be sold out of those hopefully by the end of the week. And then we will have a second hotel coming up as well. So nambaconnect.org. I hope to see you in person in September for the largest real estate and lending diversity conference in the industry. Today's webinar is really simple. We know the marketplace is changing over the last 3 to 4 months when you look at just everything going on with high interest rates, home sales, competition out in the market for purchase originations. If you're an originator or a lender, most importantly right now, the focus needs to be on how can I understand data, analytics, and insights to help me originate more loans as an originator. And then if I'm a lender, to help me be able to serve and connect more with high growth, high potential markets. So from that, we're going to share a little bit about best practices and most importantly, helping to introduce something for lenders as well as for originators called ASIL, the Accredited Social Impact Lender. Think of it as the new J.D. Power for social impact. But at the end of the day, it is a lender's playbook for growth and profitability. Right before I was coming onto the webinar, I was actually on another call with a top 10 lender in the country in terms of purchase originations. has multiple channels. And the leader of this company said, hey, Tony, you know, for IMB, they happen to be an IMB, an independent mortgage bank, just so that everyone knows, happen to be an IMB, and their comment to me, man, you know, the market has shifted. We're trying to figure out how to grow. We're trying to figure out and make sure that we watch, you know, what we spend. And my comment to that particular CEO and that leader was that right now is the time where lenders and leaders and originators need to look at the market and be all in, lean into the market, understand that this is the opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity to build and attract a great diverse sales force. And then most importantly, at the end of the day, create a holistic plan for you and your organization to grow market share, profitability, while leveraging diversity as a competitive advantage. And so for us, we call social impact lending the new frontier. That's the future of lending. It's the future of our industry. And most importantly, is what the future consumers want from lenders, as you'll see later on in this presentation. So today's agenda, we're going to discuss the business opportunity and the business case. Why should you think about and understand what is social impact lending, and how can you, whether you're an originator, understand how to better serve the communities that you live and work in each and every day, or if you're a lender, why is now the time to understand looking at the marketplace differently and creating the right strategies, the right programs, and most importantly, building the right team that can help you serve, create, and most importantly, originate purchase mortgage transactions in these high growth, high potential markets. Third, we're going to talk about the benefits of social impact lending. And then last but not least, a little bit of best practices. So along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, guys, or excuse me, phone's ringing. Feel free to send a chat through the question function, and we'll certainly try to answer those as we get near the end of the presentation. So first and foremost, let's talk about the opportunity. Multicultural marketplace, at the end of the day, is a growth market. And when you hear me say, just a level set, multicultural, at NAMBA, when we say multicultural, we're really talking about four primary cohorts: single women, millennials, communities of color, so Asian, Latino, African-American, Native American where appropriate, and then LGBT community. In fact, you may not have known, but for the last 2 years, according to NACE, the National Association of College Educators, women are enrolling in college at a rate of 2 to 1 to men. So what that means is real simple. When you think about a large cohort of buyers in the next 4 to 5 years, it will be single women. Do you have a sales force that mirrors that opportunity? Do you have the right diversity as it relates to that as well? So that is just one trending statistic. Secondly, did you know that in 2021, according to HMDA, 3 out of 4 loans that were financed by either a single female, a person of color, or a millennial. So again, if I'm an originator, I've got to look at my market that I do business in and say, how do I connect and engage? How do I build? How do I make sure that I can have outreach activities that can really help me become the trusted advisor in this marketplace? And if I'm a lender, how do I make sure that I have the right tools, the right servicing, the right talent acquisition strategy, and then most importantly, the right programs and products to serve this marketplace? So first and foremost, we know that the U.S. home buying population is rapidly shifting. From 2016 to 2020, all net population growth came from people of color. Now, let me say that again. From 2016 to 2020, all net plus population growth across the country in every major MSA occurred from people of color. When you throw in millennials and you also include women, single females, it's 10x growth opportunities. Over the next decade, 77% of new households will come from diverse households. And at NAMBA, we like to also help companies understand we no longer live in a black and white world. We're talking about mixed households. We're talking about interracial couples. We're talking about more LGBTQ. The marketplace, just about in every city, in every town, in every community in America, is undergoing a changing demographic, particularly with work from home. Having the ability where now people are potentially leaving out of Chicago and going to Raleigh, North Carolina, going to Birmingham, Alabama, going to other locations where they may have family, friends, or from a cost of living standpoint, the ability and the goal and desire to own a home. As that migration shift continues to happen, it creates a great opportunity, really a huge opportunity for lenders that understand how to engage, connect with this marketplace, and most importantly, can serve these marketplaces. Secondly, at NAMBA, we've identified, along with our partners, a $2.9 trillion market opportunity over the next 5 years. So we're not focused on how today looks. Although we're in a rising interest rate environment, we know numbers don't lie. The data is showing, the trends are showing, and the demographic migration patterns are all showing that over the next 5 years, women, millennials, communities of color, and LGBTQ represent $2.9 trillion. If you're a bank, there's a $300 billion opportunity in the next 3 years, according to TransUnion, of just LMI CRA opportunities. How is your company positioning itself to engage and connect with this high growth, high potential market? That's what we're going to talk about here today. Third, the home ownership gap between non-Hispanic and diverse households remain wide. You see some of these household gaps here, according to our most recent survey for African Americans, Latinos, as well as Asian. But what we want to make sure that I like to do when we see these statistics is I tell leaders and companies all the time, let's flip the number upside down. And so if I were to tell you that there's a 56% market opportunity in each one of the markets that you do business in right now in the African-American market, African-American community, would that be an opportunity that you would be interested in leveraging? Would that be a market that you would want to tap into to help grow market share, to help grow profitability? Most CEOs and most leaders would say, absolutely, Tony. So when we look at some of the home ownership trends at NAMBA, we say that companies have a great opportunity to do good by doing good, which is to help grow home ownership in communities of color, while also at the same time growing market share and profitability. That's why we say at NAMBA, we help companies do good by doing good. So if you're a lender, if you're an originator, and you've seen and heard me talk about some of the stats that we've just referenced, and if that doesn't get you excited about understanding the potential marketplace, particularly over the next 3 to 5 years, then why else should you think about developing a social impact lending strategy? Well, first and foremost, the current regulatory environment is going to dictate, particularly if you're a lender, that you need to be thinking about and being able to demonstrate that you have a holistic, comprehensive plan to help grow home ownership for all individuals in the communities that you live and serve, while also at the same time making sure that you're not unintentionally through different processes, different practices that may be outdated pre-pandemic, pre the current presidential administration. So therefore, it is really, really important for lenders to really think about the current regulatory environment we're in. Now, again, for me, I like to focus on the business opportunity, but hey, I also understand that the regulators will be focused on asking 2 questions. Show me what your company is doing to increase home ownership in all the communities that you live and do business in? And then secondly, show me how you are creating a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment for all of your employees to attract and retain the best and the brightest. Now, you may say, Tony, I don't know if that's really going to be the case. A couple of weeks ago, got a call from a lender who unfairly has been potentially involved and was served papers for potential big class size lawsuit of racial discrimination in their mortgage practices in terms of how the company is perceived lending to minorities versus non-minorities. So from a headline standpoint, you never want to see that headline risk where your company's name has been instigated into a lawsuit for unfair lending practices, discriminatory lending practices. Whether it is true, false, we're all innocent and proven guilty. But at the end of the day, we know that perception is reality. Secondly, consumers are now asking the question, why should I do business with you? Why should I do business with you? Why should I work for you? Do you care about the things that I care about? Do you care about me and my communities? I want to make a difference in my community. Is that what we hear from millennials who are coming into the industry? That's what we hear for a lot of multicultural employees who work in our industry. I want to make sure that what I do has an impact in the communities that I serve, as well as grow my career, as well as grow my income. At the same time, they also want to make sure now more than ever that they work for a lender who cares, who really cares, and not just say they care. Back when we were in 2020 and we were going through a lot from a racial, from the death of George Floyd, every company was talking about how much they care. Now is the time and opportunity for those companies that are truly committed to building a diverse, inclusive organization to help support and serve the markets that they live and serve in. This is the moment of opportunity for them to step up into a leadership role and to lead by example. And when they do that, they will attract the best and brightest. They will attract great consumers who will be even more loyal to them because they're actually doing good by doing good. Third, I don't know about you guys, but it's probably been a couple of weeks now, a couple of long weeks since many of you have taken a refinance activity. So we know that obviously over the next several months, next several quarters, there's no anticipation of refinances having any major impact in most organizations. Third, the multicultural marketplace. Although it says we got to pivot to purchase, focus on first-time home buyer, I take it a step further, focus on the multicultural market, because within every segment of the marketplace, whether it's Latinos, whether it's Asians, whether it's African Americans, there are different buyers. There are first-time home buyers, there are move-up buyers, there are high net affluent buyers, and we want to help companies understand that when you hear multicultural, don't always think low credit scores, hard loans, first-time home buyers. There's a tremendous opportunity in each segment, in each ethnicity, for lenders to actually tap into a vast growing power of home buyers through that entire cohort spectrum. So the benefit of understanding how to be proactive versus reactive, how to do good by doing good, is that lenders who serve this multicultural market are going to originate more loans. They're going to face less regulatory scrutiny. And third, they're going to build stronger communities. I always say that we have a great opportunity being mortgage bankers. We help build strong communities, which build strong cities, which build a strong country through home ownership. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what we're passionate about at NAMBA, is the work that we do makes a difference And we as mortgage professionals have the ability to make a difference in all the communities that we live and serve in. So alongside opportunities, there are some risks as well. And this chart just kind of shows home ownership by ethnicity. So if you look at the blue is the white non-Hispanic, which is white and Caucasian. Red represents the minority home ownership rate. Asian is green. Gray is Asian, and then red is Hispanic. Gray is African American. So you can see here how in different cities where those gaps persist. I'm going to be in Minneapolis later on in July. And so we know that there's a huge opportunity there. When you look at Minneapolis, 34% gap from white to the minority home ownership rate, 34%. Now, if I'm a lender in Minneapolis, I would be saying, wow, we have a huge opportunity to tap into a market that can help us generate more business and help us grow our company, as well as help us tap into great talent. How do we do that? That would be my question. How do we take that 34% gap and turn it into a 34% opportunity? So the way to do that is for lenders, whether you're an originator or a leader or a lender, is to start thinking about the new paradigm for lending, the new paradigm for social impact lending. And what that is really simple. We need to look at and go from a mindset of being risk adverse to looking at opportunity. Tony, what do you mean when you say risk to opportunity? Risk is most companies, well, we've got to make sure that we don't discriminate. We got to make sure that we have the right products. We got to make sure we look at our applications and see who we're lending to and what the distribution of those individuals are. Earlier this week, I was talking to a CEO at a great mid-sized IMB, independent mortgage banker, and he was telling me, Tony, we go through all of our fair lending and we do all of our analysis, and we look at the people who we take applications and we look at and see and make sure year over year that the amount of African Americans and Latinos and Asians that we're making sure that we're not discriminating against them. And my question to the CEO said, that's great. That's actually what the regulators want you to do. My question is, what about the people who are not applying? Have you ever asked the question, why don't we have more African Americans applying for mortgages with our organization? Why don't we have more women applying for mortgages with our organization? So from a primary driver of how companies should start looking at the next frontier, the new opportunity, look at it from, these are opportunities that we have. They're not risks, they're opportunities for us to ask the question, why aren't we? How can we do more opportunity lending in this space? Secondly, change the approach of being reactive versus proactive. If you are a leader, whether you're in HR, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales or compliance, I know I'm a mortgage banker for life. I've worked in both banks and non-banks. I worked in HR, we worked in sales, we worked on the retail side. Right now, everyone is being reactive. We knew that this day would be here. We knew that, at the end of the day, there would come a time where every company will need to have a bona fide, legitimate strategy, because there would be some turbulent moments. But these are just a little bit of overcast skies, a little bit of rain, but ultimately the sun will shine again for those companies that are not reactive, saying, hey, Tony, we're going to reduce everything. We got to eliminate our cost cutting. We're going to throw out our DEI program that we talked about. We were so committed to last year. We're not going to make an investment in training our employees. We're not going to look at how we can service these markets. Although we need more business, we're going to actually automatically, conscientiously go back to how we've always done business every time we go into a cycle where business is not how we anticipate. However, the smart companies, the ASIL companies are saying, we recognize the market is changing. Therefore, we want to skate to where the puck is headed, like the great Wayne Gretzky. We want to go to where the future is, which is in the multicultural market, women, millennials, communities of color, LGBTQ. And while we don't totally understand that market, we get it. We know that there's a significant upside for us, for our organization and our employees. Therefore, we want to develop a holistic plan, and we want to begin to understand how do we take an opportunity to maximize that market. Third, instead of going from peripheral, look at it from a central view. The new paradigm states that you should be looking at what you're doing, how you're doing it from the long-term vision, focusing on the long-term vision of your company, your organization, or if you're an originator, focusing on where do you truly want to be in 3 years. And again, what we're going through today, the next couple of months, or even the next year, that is noise. Great leaders, great companies, great originators understand that you will always have noise, and your goal should be to remove the noise and stay focused on the central part of your vision. Strategy, let's move from generic to targeted. One of the things that we've seen as the biggest consumer migration pattern is really simple. Cultural Outreach is one of our family of companies, multicultural marketing company, where we help companies connect and engage with the multicultural marketplace. And what we've seen, guys, since the great pandemic over the last 2.5 years, that now more buyers want to be marketed to how they want to be marketed to from a multicultural standpoint. So you can no longer just put a Black picture on a post along with some words and then say, hey, happy Juneteenth. The messaging, the imagery, the content has to be able to connect, engage. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, we just put a Black person on a photo, we say happy Juneteenth, and we think we served our purpose of connecting and quote unquote marketing to that particular segment. Whether it's Juneteenth, whether it's LGBTQ, we're in the middle of Pride Month, whether it's National Hispanic Latino Month, Asian Heritage Month, you now have to more and more understand multicultural marketing on demand. Every customer wants to feel like you are actually talking to them and not at them. Third, information from static to dynamic. What do you mean now? Static is we used to approach how we do business, that the assumption is everybody wants the same thing from us. Everybody should be approached the same way. Dynamic is understanding you must now start to use data, analytics, and insights to make better business decisions, to build a great team in terms of talent acquisition, as well as to understand the communities that you're starting to serve and you're wanting to serve better. You can only do that through data, insights, and analytics. And that's what we focus on in helping companies to look at how to understand how to do business in a social impact lending way, is using the data. And then last but not least, old school was, hey, this is our strategy, and we're going to roll it out, and then we're going to ask, well, why wasn't it successful? Whereas now the goal is to be collaborative with your employees. Hey, how do we connect to this marketplace? We know that there's a great opportunity. We know that there's a significant upside, but how do we do it? And oh, by the way, how do we make sure that we get more people on our team, just like each of you who work here today, that we value because you are an ambassadors for our company? How do we collaborate with our external stakeholders, those organizations, the nonprofits, the HFFAs, the centers of influences? How do we reach out and collaborate with them and be authentic, be genuine, to say, we want to grow home ownership in your community, and we want you to help us understand how to do that. For companies that embrace this new paradigm, they will see a significant increase in the pace of increase in terms of growing purchase originations and attracting great talent. They will see that 5x versus organizations that continue to incorporate the old status quo of how we've done business in good times, and then how we do business in not so good times. And again, guys, as we go down through the presentation today, feel free to send me any questions and we'll make sure that we stop and try to at least answer some of those as well. So we've talked a little bit about old paradigm, new paradigm, social impact lending, how it's important. But now, I want to spend a few moments on making sure companies can understand how to look at the strategic approach and look at it from a top-down level, to look at and understand how to quantify, how to compare, how to prioritize, how to focus, and then most importantly, take that into action. And so for us, we say data, because anything that you do, first and foremost, you must understand the data. Secondly, you take that data and understand the insights that come from that. One of the things that I always do when we're talking to companies about helping them to grow the multicultural market is I ask them not to look at the opportunity, how they've seen it in the past, but instead look at what the data is telling them, look at what the trends are telling them, and then most importantly, instead of looking at where the market is, flipping it upside down like we did earlier, looking at African-American home ownership, Latino home ownership, millennial home ownership, and ask the question, how do we do more business with these segments? And then once you do that, you have to obviously begin to create and build an action plan that can be measurable, that can be accountable, so that ultimately you can start making the right inroads to moving the dial in both talent and both purchase, as well as making sure that you are adequately serving those segments that you're trying to do business with from a programs and products perspective as well. So you heard me talk about, again, this chart just kind of shows a little bit of the opportunity in a lot of these major markets. $2.9 trillion, $2.9 trillion. So the good news is, if you're a lender, understand that there's market out there. The bad news is it may not be the market that you've been used to getting business in, but it's going to be the market that over the next 5 to 10 years is where there has the most significant opportunity. So for me, I like to help lenders understand that this is where the puck is headed. And truly, when you think about women, millennials, communities of color, and LGBT community, that is where the puck is headed. Now, within every market, we also know that every market is different. Just like if you're an originator, we know that every city, every part of a city, the north side versus the south side, east side of Chicago versus the west side, two totally different markets. The goal is to understand each of the markets that you live and do business in, or each of the markets as an organization you operate in or you want to operate, and then make sure that you build a playbook, a strategy that is comprehensive to serve and represent each of the markets that you want to grow in. This chart here just kind of talks a little bit about how we know that within every market is not the same. And so again, I could be here, I think I'm near O'Hare, so I don't know exactly where that is in Chicago in terms of saying east side, west side, but I think it's the north suburb area kind of. And so the African-American population within an MSA within the O'Hare Airport will be totally different and much smaller, I would assume, versus the African-American population of purchase originations in the South Side in Tinley Park, in the Chicago area on the South Side. And so understanding that is important, because your strategies, whether it's African-American, whether it's Latino, whether it's LGBTQ, all of those will be different based on the market and then based on the potential growth of that market opportunity. The important thing for lenders is to understand that you have to drill down into these areas to understand and know the opportunities. Even if you don't quite understand the markets themselves, you have to go deep by using data. We have here at NAMBA a number of different tools and resources that we help share with our partners around how to drill down and look at a map and understand the heat map. Earlier today, again, I was talking to a top 10 lender, and they were saying, Tony, we want to do more business in these cities here, particularly with people of color. And yes, we're using our HMDA data, but we feel like there's another way, another level of, how do we get to more people in this market? And so I talked to them about understanding how to look at data through a map, a heat map, which we share and partner with our companies to give them access to our ASIL program to take a look. So this is a map, for example, in an African-American market where you see some of the red dots are purchase loans, and then you see some of the stars or where the branch locations are. And so you can see that where the stars are here on the left-hand side in these corners, and where the business is getting done here in the red areas and in orange and in yellow, that lender is actually not getting business in those markets. So the first thing that we do is help the lender understand, here's where today's market is, here's where your branches are. Let's figure out a game plan to help create, do we have the right sales force to mirror that market? Do we have the right products and programs? What are we doing from a marketing standpoint that will be different on how we market to this segment? Because again, the consumer, the multicultural consumer has said, I'm different now. And if you don't make me feel like you value my differences and you don't connect and resonate with me that way, then I'm gonna look for a lender or another potential vendor who does. And so the goal here is to understand that and tilt and pivot your marketing and make sure that how you market to the Latinos, how you market to your African-American, how you market to the LGBT community, whatever that marketplace is in this particular circle, that's how we're going to engage and connect to further drive and increase revenues in purchase originations. Also, by looking at these marketplaces, it helps you to reduce risk, particularly when you have regulatory reviews, because you're able to go into the markets and be proactive and say, Mr. Regulator, Mr. State Regulator, Mr. CFPB, we were able to identify early on that we had some gaps. And now here are the action items. Here's the playbook that we developed with our partners over at NAMBA as well to kind of help be proactive versus reactive. And trust me, in today's regulatory environment, anything that you can do to show that you did not intentionally create opportunities or not create opportunities to grow multicultural home ownership is a very, very positive thing to do. So with that being said, it's important that companies build 360 strategies with 360 insights. First, when you think about sales and marketing, do we have the right message in the right media? According to NAMBA Cultural Outreach, we do a diversity survey every year. 85% of marketing teams are made up of white individuals. So sometimes, again, when you think about, are we saying, doing, connecting with the right messaging, the right imagery, sometimes that may be difficult to do if you don't understand those markets, if you don't have employees that are on the team that can help as well. But one funny study is I was talking with a marketing team, and there was an individual happened to be Asian, and he was the only Asian person on the marketing team. And he would say, Tony, I get, I don't want the company coming to me asking me, is this how Asians like to be marketed to? Because I'm not every Asian, and Asians are different throughout their entire spectrum of borrowers, high net affluent, move up buyers, first time home buyers, LGBTQ buyers, all those are different. Although they have the same ethnicity, they're very different in how they want to be engaged, how they want to be marketed to. And so sometimes even as an Asian employee who works in the marketing department, I get concerned that I don't know if I'm saying the right thing about some of these cohorts. So do you have the right message in the right media? Are you providing your customers the right ways to engage with you from a communication, from an application standpoint, from a messaging standpoint, how they want to engage. Particularly with the millennial community, they want an omni-channel approach. They want to weave in and out of text, email, phone, and then ultimately in person. Programs and products. Do we have a gap in our product offerings based on the markets that we're trying to serve? Are there DPAs? Are there special credit purpose programs that we can create or partner with to be able to make sure that if we don't have those products, we can provide those products to help close that gap to those underserved communities? Third, the goals and resources. Are we aligning our origination resources from a talent, from a marketing to the borrowers that we want to serve, the borrowers that we want to increase home ownership in? How are we aligning those resources to support the goal and vision of the organization? Do we have the right people to service those markets? What are we doing to build a feeder system? I think it's no secret out there that the average age of a loan officer is getting older and older each year. And so if I'm a lender, I'm looking and thinking about how do I build a farm system that can allow me to attract great diverse talent to serve these high growth, high potential markets. And then last but not least, relationships and outreach. Are you establishing the right COI, centers of influence? Are you establishing the right relationships with community stakeholders that can help you achieve your goals of originating more homes in that multicultural space by developing collaborative partnerships? So it's important to understand, if you don't have a holistic, comprehensive plan, your chances of being very effective and ultimately very successful dramatically decreases. You've got to have a holistic plan, particularly in today's market, because you can't just market and put up a flyer and think that that's going to get you more loans. You can't just put up a recruiting flyer showing imagery and think that that's going to help you attract great multicultural talent. Because when they get to your organization, or before they get to your organization, one of the key things that today's multicultural potential recruit will ask is, what's your platform? How are you supporting me and my community? Do you have the right tools? Do you have the right resources for me to go out and to be able to represent, to serve, and to be able to educate the community that I live and work in? And if you don't have those things, or if you don't and you can't show that you have a roadmap to put those things in place, then chances are that high performing multicultural recruit will choose not to work at your organization, thus making it more difficult for you to have the right people in the right place to service those communities. So as we close out here, one of the things that's important for companies to understand is that you got to connect your sales team with your community partners. We know that since the pandemic, that a lot of loan officers have been so busy, refinancing, that they've really have created and really lack the right skill set to go out and now you focus on business development in a marketplace where agents are not in the office. They are working more remotely. They're using webinars, technology, text, messaging, and other forms of media and communication to do business. Do you have, and is your sales team equipped for that skill set? Does your sales team understand some of the new buying demographics and trends of the multicultural market to understand how to better engage, communicate, talk to them, and most importantly, serve them? Secondly, are you identifying the barriers and bridges in each of your markets or across your enterprise from a housing affordability standpoint? From DPA, a lot of times we hear lenders say, hey, our loan officers, their agents tell them they don't like to work with down payment assistance. We know that obviously in some communities, when you're making offers on homes, that those that have a down payment assistance or another third-party provider in terms of down payment assistance, sometimes realtors just don't want to go through that process. This is an opportunity to take that realtor and that real estate community, and as well as your lenders and originators, and say, here are some of the benefits if we educate both the seller, the borrower, as well as our real estate partners. We can actually use some of the DPAs, the first-time home buyer programs. We can use those to our advantage, but we've got to do it in such a way where we show and help our partners understand here are the benefits that can be derived from that. And then last but not least, take action with your insights. You got to make sure that you're looking at how you're measuring yourself, both on top down in terms of market share in the marketplace, in each of the marketplace you're doing, and then from a peer group. What do you mean? If I'm an IMB, I want to also not just compare, how do I look across the market in a certain category from top to bottom, but then how do I look from a peer group? How do I look compared to credit unions, compared to banks? Even though you may not be a bank, the more information as a leader that you can share with your organization about where they are from a benchmarking standpoint. And that's what we help companies do, is understand where they are relative to their peer groups in a market, relative to the entire marketplace, so they get a 360 holistic view of how they're performing, how they're trending, and then most importantly, the opportunities that they have within that market. So as we close out, you want to make sure that you focus around setting goals and developing strategies that use data, insights, and analytics. You want to take a look at how you're currently doing business today. And in my opinion, throw that playbook out, because that was a pre-pandemic playbook. Ever since the pandemic, ever since COVID, in every consumer's industry, buying patterns have radically changed. And here's a free nugget. They're not going back to how they used to do business, how they used to engage with companies. Consumers have now changed their behaviors. And so lenders have to understand we must modify, adapt, and pivot how we engage with the marketplace, how we support originators to serve that marketplace, and then most importantly, how we look at that marketplace. We have to be proactive versus reactive. And then last but not least, we got to make sure that we engage folks on our team, our employees, our current employees, as well as our stakeholders within our organization and external stakeholders that we spoke about earlier, to really ensure that we're getting a 360 feedback on what we're doing, the strategies that we're developing to help grow origination, to help grow purchase market share in all the communities that we live and serve in. So when you do that, you then have pillars of success where leaders develop strategies that are forward-looking. Again, proactive versus reactive. Secondly, making sure that you collaborate both internally and externally goes a long way when building relationships that can have a lot of great ROI, return on investment, out in the local community. They want to know that you are committed to doing good by doing good. Third, be prepared for changes by looking at out-of-the-box solutions and thinking and trying things that you normally would not have tried. Third, you have to incorporate now data, demographics, and insights to be successful. And then last but not least, you got to have a plan. At NABA, we call it a go-to-market playbook, because a go-to-market playbook helps you create a holistic strategy in every aspect of your organization: sales, talent acquisition, marketing, compliance, products and programs. You have to take a look at the entire comprehensive market, as well as internally within the organization. Now, for lenders that may not understand why social impact lending is important and will be even more important in the future. It's really simple. There are some risks. As we talked about, I mentioned earlier, one, more focused oversight from regulators. Two, consumer advocacy trade groups. More and more, you see trade groups looking at boycotting, certainly putting in the news lenders who they feel like are not doing good by doing good. Third, as we saw, I personally, when I talk to attorneys and CEO, and I tell them this not to scare them, but it's a reality from what we're seeing. Our industry is ripe for litigation. If you just think about if you were in HR or you're in marketing or you're a CEO today and you get a lawsuit around DE&I, you get a lawsuit around fair lending discrimination, how bulletproof really is your organization? And how bulletproof has it been focused on setting up the right tools, the right systems, and most importantly, being proactive by developing a holistic plan? How much has your organization focused on that over the last 3 years? Probably not a lot if we're really honest with ourselves, because the last 3 years, we've been focused on just originating loans and closing loans. So there's a huge opportunity of unintentional consequences, particularly from a litigation side. And then last but not least, the Great Resignation. Not only are we going through a tremendous period of time where lenders are having to downsize and right-size their organization because of lack of volume, but also in doing that, a lot of your great employees are also asking the question, is my company really the same company that said 2.5 years ago that they care about me, they care about my communities, this is something that means something to them? Do they really are they really demonstrating that today? And if that answer, in their opinion, is no, because you are not focusing on developing your internal employees through affinity groups, through employee resource groups, or your outreach, or you haven't developed the right programs, the marketing collateral, et cetera, to help them support, you are also extremely at risk of not only losing people that you had through just the migration of the lack of business, but also your best and brightest looking at leaving the organization as well. So our goal at NABA, in closing, is we develop a resource to help lenders. It's called the ACEL certification program. It stands for the Accredited Social Impact Lender Certification. It's a year-long process that we work with lenders. Less than 5% of lenders will be able to say that they have an ACEL. And our goal is to help give companies that want to be proactive, help them develop a competitive market share advantage by developing a holistic go-to-market playbook that is really focused on 4 areas: human capital, talent acquisition, employee resource, DE&I, making sure that at the end of the day, from a marketing standpoint, that they can recruit and retain the best and the brightest, that they have the right programs, products, their social media, all connect and resonate with that multicultural market. And then last but not least, profitability, understanding where the business and opportunities are in their footprint from a purchase origination standpoint, and then helping to develop the strategies, comprehensive strategies to go out and get that business while also creating the right fair lending and the right process from a market peer lending side, so that they can demonstrate to the regulators that they're doing good by doing good. And at the end of the day, for lenders that go through that process, they end up with a great multicultural market strategy, the ability to attract and retain great talent, as well as a playbook for the regulators. And last but not least, great benchmarking data, so that each year they can continue to increase their performance, as well as their growth of purchase originations in the multicultural community. We've covered a lot today. Let's see if we have any questions. Again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to send those through the chat function for me as well. We'll take a look at those. While we're waiting, feel free to connect with me. You can connect with NAMBA at NAMBA Connect, as well as you can connect with me on Facebook. Excuse me, I'm not on Facebook. LinkedIn at J Tony Thompson. Would love to have you connect with me, and certainly let me know how we can help you and your organization leverage diversity as a competitive advantage. Don't see any questions thus far. We'll give it one more second. We're 4 minutes before the top of the hour. So excited that we're able to get this into content. As we close out, let me say two things. First and foremost, I want to thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. Secondly, now's the time, if you're an originator or a lender, to really look at and think about repositioning how you look at doing business in the months and years to come. And most importantly is, even if you don't know exactly what to do and how to service that market, a lot of times I have the honor and privilege of coaching a couple of top originators who are not minorities, they're white males, but we built their teams in such a way that we identify multicultural opportunities in their market, and then we build the right team members in terms of hiring individuals that can service and support that market, as well as making sure that through their marketing, their messaging, and their outreach strategies, that they're able to build trust, establish themselves as a trusted advisor, connect and engage with those segments, how they want to connect and engage with, and thus increase their business as an originator, even though they're not a multicultural originator. And so for lenders that understand that this market is radically changing, and they look at it and say, how do we connect more? What do we need to do? And they begin to ask questions differently than how they've done in the past. Those will be the lenders that will see an opportunity to really grow business, grow talent, and most importantly, do good, which is increase home ownership in every community that they live and work in, while also doing good, which is growing profitability and market share over the next several years in this space. I'm Tony Thompson, guys. I want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, send those to me here via email, connect with me on LinkedIn, and last but not least, I hope to see you in beautiful Orlando, Florida in September, where we've got a lot of information, a lot of great content, and a lot of great speakers that we'll be connecting everyone with at NAMBA Connect. This concludes our webinar for today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you soon at the next webinar. Take care. Thank you.